Hi, I'm Julianne,
I'm Siddharth.
I'm Grant.
and today we will be giving a presentation on why food delivery is not always very good for restaurants. Okay, so how many of us here really enjoy using apps such as Uber Eats or DoorDash to get their food delivered straight to their door? Right? A lot of us, right? Me too. It is extremely convenient on the consumer side of things, right? It requires no social interaction and it is very quick to do. And actually last summer, I worked a little bit as a DoorDash driver. And if there is one thing I learned, it is that there's a very constant demand of people that want food delivered straight to their door. And kind of instinctively, I thought that this must be good for those businesses, right? There's a very excessive demand for their food. However, kind of through reading the article that we read, I learned that there is a few issues associated with delivery service and restaurants. So, kind of just to set a basis here, many restaurants did not offer delivery service initially before the pandemic happened. Now, in order for them to simply survive, they had to implement this new service of delivery. It was simply a survival thing, and it wasn't necessarily some marvelous business tactic. Now, one of the main issues associated with delivery service is that it is very expensive for these restaurants. So each piece of food that the restaurant sells already does not give a very high amount of profit. Now, these outsourced kind of third-party apps charge these restaurants a fee for each amount of food that they are delivering. So you add these already very small profit margins along with this additional fee, and the overall profit is very, very low, even lower than before. Now, one of these second challenges is that it can be very stressful for the employees there. So I'm sure we've all walked into a Chipotle before and seen there's a line all the way to the door of people that are just waiting to take their orders. And then also you have like 5 or 6 DoorDash drivers waiting for their food to also be made. Now, one thing is for certain is that there is very stressed out employees, and this can kind of contribute to just a very stressful work environment, which obviously has a bunch of negative impacts on the business. And kind of just one last issue is that I'm sure we've all gotten food delivered to our homes before that just did not taste as good as it did in the restaurant itself. And oftentimes this gets blamed on the restaurant, and this can lead to bad reviews, which is obviously never a good thing. Now, this often isn't really the restaurant's fault though. Some foods just simply don't deliver well, and the restaurant isn't necessarily the one to blame. Now, later on in the presentation, Grant will be talking about some of these future solutions for these issues. However, for now, I'm going to hand it off to Sid, who is going to talk about kind of how this article connects into our class curriculum.
Okay, so as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has really changed how customers behave in different settings. For instance, the target market for most of these restaurant groups were dine-in customers who would typically go out with their families on a good night to eat or have bonding experiences at different restaurants. However, this has changed drastically throughout the pandemic as restaurants have had to make themselves more presentable to groups who are more interested in taking out food or more delivery services. And this is quite a bit of a change compared to how a lot of these businesses were operating. And essentially, the target market for these groups have changed drastically due to changed behaviors by the customer base, and restaurants are essentially forced to adapt to that. So a lot of these restaurants would typically hire third-party vendors or organizations to carry out their delivery services. And typically these third-party organizations would take around 30% of all profits which were made due to the sales throughout the company. And even though this is quite a pretty drastic amount of money, it's still substantially less than the amount they make without any delivery services, particularly during the pandemic. Another big change which has happened during the pandemic is that dine-in, mostly major dine-in restaurants like Applebee's and Chili's have changed their entire business strategy to make themselves more presentable to delivery services. A lot of customers who frequent Applebee's or Chili's usually opt for dine-in services because of the demographics that are presented in each of these companies. And as these like older demographics started staying home more often due to government mandates or just fear of COVID, these restaurants had to take a different approach and make themselves more presentable and relevant during the pandemic, causing them to have more delivery services. This is a really great example of societal marketing strategies in which restaurants orient themselves to become more relevant with customer demands overall. Furthermore, wealthy older people who typically stayed at home more during the pandemic also started opting more for delivery services. As we know, usually older people prefer dining inside restaurants for a multitude of reasons, and usually younger people opt for different delivery services. But this has changed immensely during the pandemic, especially as the pandemic has been pretty hard on the elderly. So this has caused a lot of older people to opt for delivery services, which in turn caused these restaurants to increase their prices, their delivery prices, as these older people typically have a higher overall disposable income. And this marketing strategy has helped lots of businesses actually gain more money through their delivery services and a change in their overall business plan. Essentially, to tie it all in together, lots of large corporations and fast food chains had to change their overall marketing strategies and business strategies to stay relevant during the pandemic. And by increasing delivery services, they were able to stay lucrative even during these trying times. And now I'll hand it off to Grant to talk about the future.
Alright, so before I get into it, we're gonna show a short video, basically just summarizing up what Sid and Julianne just mentioned. There we go.
Well, some relief could be coming as one struggles from the pandemic in Westchester. Last night, the County Board of Legislators approved a 15% cap on food delivery fees for apps like Grubhub and Uber Eats. The measure also places a 5% cap on other service fees the companies might charge. The legislation would only apply during a declared emergency such as the pandemic and would end 90 days after the emergency has ended. Westchester County Executive George Latimer still needs to sign it into law. New York City passed a similar cap on food delivery apps earlier this year.
So, the future outlook for delivery, it's going nowhere. It's not going to leave. If anything, demand for food delivery is going to get even bigger, much larger. It's going to get a way more client base. People are really going to want to expect more. Amazon, it's really already apparent in a lot of other industries. Like Amazon really set foot in that like delivery service with like household products. Now it's like DoorDash and Grubhub with food. People are really expecting a lot of these super fast delivery times. For future outlooks, the like delivery service fees, a lot of companies are pushing those onto the customers, so the customers pay for those delivery charges because restaurant profit margins are already really slim, and they're just gonna make them like push those fees onto the customers, or they can negotiate deals with those delivery services to make them cheaper so it doesn't cut into their profits. But other than that, it's not going anywhere. If anything, more people are going to want more delivery. They're going to want faster delivery. It's not like more restaurants are going to be using it. They're going to figure out smoother ways to do it. But all in all, deliveries are really expensive. It's killing into the profit margins of restaurants, and there's a lot more customers out there, that like potential customers that they can reach with delivery. And I think that's it. Right? We good? All right. That's our presentation on food delivery and how it's affecting restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.